It was February 16th, 2026 at 2:47 a.m. when a dream so violent, so consuming, drove me from my bed to the waterfall overlook deep in the rainforest outside San Juan, and there, surrounded by the thunderous roar of water plunging 300 feet into darkness, by the mist that rose like incense through ancient ferns and ceiba trees, by air so thick with moisture I could taste the earth itself, Jesus appeared before me with tears streaming down his face and revealed that the very objects we treasure most in our homes, the things we dust and display and protect, are creating invisible barriers between us and the blessings he's been trying to pour into our lives for years. Not everyone who sees this message is meant to see it. Some will scroll past, some will ignore it, but you've been marked. You've been chosen to receive this revelation at this exact moment because there is something in your home right now, something you walk past every single day, that is blocking a blessing so massive, so life-changing, that the enemy has worked overtime to keep you blind to it. Before I go any further, I need you to do something. I need you to type your prayer request in the comments right now. Don't wait until the end. Don't think about it. Whatever burden you're carrying, whatever blessing you've been waiting for, type it now. Because what I'm about to share with you is going to connect directly to that prayer in ways you cannot possibly imagine yet. And if you're serious about your faith, if you're truly hungry for breakthrough, hit that subscribe button. This channel isn't for casual believers. It's not for people who want their ears tickled with comfortable messages. This is for the remnant. This is for those who are willing to hear hard truth. The algorithm doesn't favor messages like this one. YouTube doesn't promote content that challenges people this deeply. So when you subscribe, you're telling the platform, and more importantly, you're telling heaven, that you're ready for truth. Many of you know me as the actor who portrays Jesus in The Chosen. That role has been the greatest honor of my life, but it's also been the greatest responsibility, because when you spend years studying his words, his character, his heart, when you immerse yourself so deeply in Scripture to portray him faithfully, something happens. The line between performance and reality begins to blur, not because I'm confused about who I am, but because he becomes more real than anything else in your life. And sometimes, in ways I still don't fully understand, he shows up in moments when you least expect it, but most desperately need it. This was one of those moments. I need to take you back to that night, to help you understand why I'm sitting here now, still shaking, still processing what I witnessed. I'd gone to bed around 11, exhausted from a long day of meetings and preparation for the upcoming season. But at 2:34 a.m., I know the exact time because I checked my phone. I jolted awake with a sensation I can only describe as being pulled. Not physically, but spiritually, like a hook had been set in the center of my chest and something was reeling me in. And in that twilight between sleep and waking, I heard a voice, not audible but clearer than any sound. Come to the water. I need to show you what they cannot see. I'm 51 years old. I'm single. I live alone. And I'm telling you that at 2:34 in the morning, the last thing a rational person does is get dressed and drive into the rainforest. But there was no question in my mind. No debate. I pulled on jeans and a jacket, got in my car, and drove the winding road up into the mountains outside the city. The rainforest at night is not like anything you've experienced unless you've been there. The darkness is absolute. The sounds are otherworldly. As I parked at the trailhead and began the 15-minute hike to the waterfall overlook, my flashlight beam seemed to be swallowed by the vegetation. Tree ferns the size of umbrellas dripped with moisture. The calls of coqui frogs created a symphony so loud it was almost deafening, and beneath it all, growing louder with each step, was the bass rumble of the waterfall. The temperature was probably 75 degrees, but the humidity made it feel like I was breathing through a wet cloth. My shirt clung to my back. The beam of my flashlight caught the eyes of something in the canopy, probably a bird, maybe something else. And I felt that primal fear that reminds you that you're not the apex predator in this environment. When I reached the overlook, a wooden platform built decades ago, now slick with moss and mist, I turned off my flashlight. The darkness was complete, absolute, the kind of darkness that makes you understand why ancient peoples feared the night. But then my eyes began to adjust, and I realized it wasn't completely dark at all. The stars, oh, the stars. Without city lights, without any human illumination for miles, the Milky Way stretched across the sky like a river of light, and the mist rising from the waterfall caught that starlight, creating a luminous fog that seemed to glow from within. I stood at the railing, feeling the platform vibrate beneath my feet from the force of the water, feeling the mist coat my face and hands, and I said out loud, I'm here. What do you want to show me? The response was immediate. The mist in front of me began to coalesce, to take shape. And I'm not speaking metaphorically or symbolically. I'm telling you that the water vapor, the starlight, the very air itself seemed to gather and form into the figure of a man standing 3 feet in front of me. Jesus. I recognized him immediately, though not from the mirror or the makeup chair. This was different. This was him. The presence was unmistakable, that combination of absolute authority and infinite tenderness that no actor could ever capture, that no human being could ever manufacture. He was weeping. His face was wet with tears that caught the starlight, and I couldn't tell where the mist ended and his tears began. And his eyes. I've tried to portray those eyes for years, but I've never come close to the reality. They held everything. All of history, all of love, all of sorrow. Jonathan, he said, and his voice was like the waterfall itself, powerful enough to shake the ground, gentle enough to be intimate. Do you know why I've brought you here? I couldn't speak. I tried, but no words came. I've brought you to the water because what I need to show you is like this waterfall. It's been flowing constantly, powerfully, but my people have built barriers that prevent them from receiving it, and they don't even know the barriers are there. He gestured toward the waterfall, and suddenly I could see it differently. The water wasn't just water, it was light, golden and pure, cascading down with such abundance that it seemed impossible that anything could lack if they simply stood beneath it. This is my blessing, he said. This is what I pour out continuously for my children. Provision, healing, breakthrough, relationships, purpose. It never stops. It never diminishes. But look, he gestured again, and my perspective shifted. I was no longer on the overlook, but somehow viewing the waterfall from a different angle, and I could see that between the falling water and the pool below, there were barriers. Invisible at first, but as I focused, they became clear. Sheets of something, not quite solid, not quite transparent, that caught the water and diverted it away. What are those? I whispered. Come closer, he said, and suddenly we were standing in front of one of these barriers, and I could see that it wasn't a single sheet but thousands of objects, woven together by threads of light that looked beautiful, but were actually chains. These are the idols in their homes, Jesus said, and his voice broke with grief. Not the obvious ones. Not statues of false gods. These are the subtle ones, the acceptable ones, the ones they would never call idols because they seem innocent. Good, even. He reached out and touched one of the objects, and it enlarged before my eyes. It was a photograph, a family portrait, professionally done, beautifully framed. This? I said, confused. But family is important. You created family. Look deeper, he said. And as I looked, I began to see threads extending from the photograph, threads that connected to a woman's heart, and I somehow knew, don't ask me how, that this woman looked at this photograph 50 times a day, that she had built her entire identity around being a mother, that she had made her children into her purpose, her validation, her God. And because of that, she couldn't hear me calling her into the ministry I had prepared for her. She couldn't see the women I was sending her to mentor because she was so focused on her own children that everyone else became invisible. The photograph isn't the problem, Jesus said. The worship is. She has made a good thing into a God thing, and it's blocking the waterfall of purpose I want to pour into her life. I felt sick because I understood. Immediately I understood. He touched another object, and it enlarged. A diploma, master's degree, framed in expensive wood, hung in a prominent place. This man, Jesus said, and again I could somehow see into a life that wasn't mine, has made his education his identity. He introduces himself by his degrees. He measures everyone he meets by their credentials, and because of this, he cannot receive the wisdom I want to give him. He cannot learn from the uneducated people I keep sending into his path who carry the revelation he desperately needs. His diploma is blocking the waterfall of wisdom. Object after object he showed me. A trophy case from high school athletics, blocking the waterfall of present moment purpose because the person was still living in past glory. A collection of expensive shoes, each pair representing a pursuit of status that was blocking the waterfall of contentment and peace. A wall of books about theology, blocking the waterfall of actual encounter because the person had replaced relationship with information. But Lord, I said, my voice shaking. These things aren't evil. Family photos, education, achievements, books, these are good things. Yes, he said, and his tears fell harder. That's what makes this so insidious. The enemy doesn't need to tempt my people with obvious evil anymore. He simply takes good things and whispers, "Make this your identity. Make this your security. Make this your source." And slowly, subtly, good things become God things. And when that happens, they create barriers between my children and the blessings I'm pouring out. The wind picked up suddenly, sending the mist swirling around us, and I heard the waterfall's roar intensify. Or maybe it had always been that loud, and I was only now truly hearing it. "Jonathan," he said, turning to face me fully, "I need you to understand something. This isn't about minimalism. This isn't about getting rid of possessions. This is about worship. This is about where my people are placing their trust, their identity, their hope. A person can own nothing and still have idols. A person can own much and have no idols. It's not about the objects, it's about the heart's attachment to them." He walked to the edge of the overlook, and I followed. Below, in the pool where the waterfall crashed, I could see something glowing. Blessings, I somehow knew. Specific blessings with specific names attached to them, waiting to be received. But they couldn't rise to reach the people they were meant for because of the barriers. "There's a woman watching this right now," Jesus said, looking directly at me with an intensity that made me step back. "She's been praying for financial breakthrough for 3 years. 3 years, Jonathan. And I've been trying to answer that prayer. I've been pouring out the blessing. But in her living room, there's a china cabinet full of dishes that belonged to her grandmother, and she's made those dishes into a shrine to the past. She's made them into her security. At least I have these, she tells herself. At least I have something valuable. And because she's placed her security in those dishes instead of in me, she cannot receive the financial blessing I'm sending. The blessing is there. It's waiting, but the barrier is blocking it. What does she need to do?" I asked. "She needs to break the worship," he said simply. "Maybe that means selling the dishes. Maybe it means giving them away. Maybe it just means changing her heart toward them. But the worship must be broken." He turned back to the waterfall, and another vision opened before me, a man's home office, walls covered with awards, certificates, photos with important people. "This man is praying for a breakthrough in his marriage," Jesus said. "He's been praying for 2 years, and I've been answering, I've been sending the breakthrough, but his identity is so wrapped up in his achievements, in his status, in what he's accomplished, that he cannot humble himself before his wife. He cannot apologize. He cannot admit fault. His awards have become his identity, and they're blocking the waterfall of reconciliation." Vision after vision he showed me. A woman whose collection of Christian books was blocking her from actually hearing God's voice because she trusted authors more than the Holy Spirit. A man whose perfectly decorated home was blocking him from hospitality because he was more concerned with maintaining appearances than welcoming the messy people God was sending him. A couple whose photo-perfect social media presence was blocking them from authentic community because they'd made image into an idol. "How many?" I asked, my voice barely audible over the waterfall. "How many people are blocked like this?" "Most," he said, and the grief in his voice was unbearable. "Most of my people have something in their homes right now that they've elevated above me. Not intentionally, not consciously, but the human heart is so prone to idolatry that it will make a god out of anything, and the tragedy, the absolute tragedy, is that they're praying for blessings I'm already sending. They're begging for breakthrough that's already been released, but they can't receive it because of the barriers they've built with their own hands." The sky was beginning to lighten in the east. Dawn was still an hour away, but the absolute darkness was giving way to deep blue. The stars were fading, and Jesus began to fade with them, becoming mist again, becoming light. "Wait," I said desperately. "What do I tell them? How do they know what their barrier is?" "Tell them to ask me," he said, his voice now coming from everywhere and nowhere. "Tell them to walk through their homes and ask me to show them what they've made into an idol. Tell them I will answer that prayer immediately because I'm desperate for them to receive what I've been trying to give them. Tell them—" His voice broke and I heard him weeping again, the sound mixing with the waterfall's roar. "Tell them I love them too much to let them stay blocked. Tell them the blessings are waiting. Tell them it's time to remove the barriers." And then he was gone, and I was alone on the platform as the first birds began to call in the canopy above me. I stood there for another hour, shaking, weeping, watching the waterfall in the growing light. And I knew with absolute certainty that I had to share this message, no matter how uncomfortable it made people, no matter how many would dismiss it or mock it. Because somewhere, someone watching this right now has been praying for a blessing that's already been released, and there's something in your home, something you walk past every day, something that seems innocent or even good, that's blocking it. Tomorrow night, I'm going back to that waterfall, because Jesus told me there's more. There's a deeper level to this revelation that I'm not ready to share yet because you're not ready to hear it yet. But I need you to do something before tomorrow night. I need you to walk through your home today, slowly, room by room, and I need you to pray a dangerous prayer. Jesus, show me what I've made into an idol. Show me what's blocking your blessings. I'm warning you, he will answer that prayer, and you might not like what he shows you. Comment below if you're brave enough to pray that prayer. Comment, show me, if you're ready for him to reveal what's been blocking you. And come back tomorrow night, because what he showed me on the second night made the first night look like a gentle introduction. The waterfall is still flowing, the blessings are still waiting, but the barriers must come down. It was February 17th, 2026 at 3:15 a.m. when I found myself back on that same trail, but this time I wasn't alone in my confusion. I was terrified, because the dream that woke me this time wasn't gentle. It wasn't an invitation. It was a command that shook me from sleep with such force that I was dressed and in my car before I was fully conscious of what I was doing. And as I drove those winding mountain roads in the pre-dawn darkness, I kept hearing his voice. They didn't believe you. Show them more. Show them the cost. The rainforest was different on the second night. The air was heavier, charged with something I couldn't name. As I hiked that familiar 15-minute trail, my flashlight beam seemed weaker, swallowed more quickly by the darkness. The coqui frogs were silent, completely silent, and that absence of sound was more unsettling than any noise could have been. The only sound was my breathing, my footsteps on the muddy trail, and that ever-present rumble of the waterfall growing louder with each step. When I reached the overlook, I didn't turn off my flashlight immediately. I stood there, gripping the railing, feeling the platform vibrate beneath my feet, and I realized I was afraid, not of the darkness, not of the isolation, but of what he was going to show me. Because yesterday after I posted that first message, the comments started coming in, hundreds of them, and they fell into two categories: those who were hungry and desperate, typing "show me" with trembling hearts, and those who were defensive and angry, accusing me of legalism, of works-based salvation, of making people feel guilty about their possessions. And I'll be honest with you, that second group got in my head. I started second-guessing, started wondering if I'd heard correctly, started questioning whether I should continue this message or just let it die quietly. But then the dream came, and the command, and now I was back. I turned off my flashlight. The mist rose from the waterfall like it had the night before, but thicker now, more substantial. And the stars were different tonight, brighter, closer, like they were pressing down, bearing witness to what was about to happen. You doubted. His voice came before his form appeared, and there was no accusation in it, only sadness. You heard the truth, you saw the revelation, and then you let the voices of men make you question what I showed you. I'm sorry, I whispered. Some of them made good points. About grace, about freedom in Christ, about not being under the law. The mist coalesced again, and he was there, standing closer than before. Close enough that I could have reached out and touched him. His face was still wet with tears, but there was something else in his expression now, a holy urgency, a divine frustration born not of anger, but of love that's been rejected too many times. Jonathan, he said, and the way he spoke my name made my knees weak. Do you think I died on a cross to give my people freedom to worship other gods? Do you think grace means I'm indifferent to what they love more than me? No, but come, he interrupted, gesturing toward the waterfall. I need to show you what their defenses are costing them. The perspective shifted again, that same supernatural way it had the night before, and suddenly we were standing in the mist itself, inside the waterfall, surrounded by that golden light that represented his blessings. But now I could see something I hadn't seen before. The blessings weren't just waiting passively, they were trying to break through. They were pushing against those barriers, seeking the people they were meant for, and when they couldn't get through, they were being redirected, sent elsewhere, given to others. This is what they don't understand, Jesus said, his voice heavy with grief. My blessings don't just sit idle when they're blocked. They go to someone else, someone who's ready, someone who's removed their barriers, and the person who was meant to receive them. They keep praying, keep waiting, keep wondering why I'm not answering, never realizing that I already answered. They just couldn't receive it. He gestured, and I saw a specific blessing. It had a name attached to it, Sarah, and I could see it was a financial blessing, a specific amount of money, $47,000, meant to pay off her debt completely. I watched as it pushed against a barrier trying to reach her, but the barrier held firm. What's blocking her? I asked. Jesus touched the barrier, and it became transparent. I could see into Sarah's home. A spare bedroom, completely full. Wall-to-wall boxes, storage containers, bags of clothes, furniture she didn't use, decorations for every season and holiday. And in the center of it all, a clear path to a small desk where she sat every night, praying for financial breakthrough. She can't let go, Jesus said. Every item in that room represents security to her. I might need this someday, she tells herself. This was expensive. This has sentimental value. I can't just throw away perfectly good things. And so she keeps it all, and her attachment to these things, her belief that her security comes from having them, creates a barrier. The blessing is right here. The $47,000 is released, but she can't receive it because her heart is divided. But what does her stuff have to do with receiving money? I asked. Everything, he said, turning to face me. Because the money isn't just money. It's a test of trust. If I gave her $47,000 right now, she would use it to buy a bigger house so she could store more things. She would use it to feed the very idol that's blocking her, so the blessing waits. It waits for her to demonstrate that her security is in me, not in her possessions. It waits for her to let go. I watched as the blessing, after pushing against the barrier for what seemed like hours compressed into seconds, finally redirected. It flowed to someone else, a woman named Jennifer who had just cleaned out her entire garage, giving away thousands of dollars worth of possessions because she felt God asking her to trust him more than her stuff. No, I breathed. That's not fair. Fair? Jesus turned to me, and for the first time I saw something like fire in his eyes. You want to talk about fair? I gave everything. I held nothing back. I poured myself out completely. And I'm asking my people to let go of things they don't even use, things that are gathering dust, things that own them more than they own the things. And you're telling me that's not fair? The wind picked up suddenly, violently, sending the mist swirling around us in chaotic patterns. The temperature dropped. I could feel it even in the humidity, and the waterfall's roar intensified until it was almost painful. Let me show you more, he said, and the grief was back in his voice, deeper than before. Let me show you what their idols are really costing them. Vision after vision opened before me, each one more heartbreaking than the last. A man named David, praying for healing from chronic pain for 5 years. 5 years of desperate prayers, of faith declarations, of believing for breakthrough. And I could see the healing, already released, already sent, pushing against a barrier. The barrier was his home gym, thousands of dollars of equipment that he'd bought in his 20s when he was an athlete, equipment he hadn't used in 15 years but couldn't let go of because it represented who he used to be. His identity was so tied to his past physical prowess that he couldn't accept his present reality, couldn't surrender his old self to God. And so the healing couldn't come because receiving it would require him to build a new identity, and he wasn't willing to let go of the old one. I watched as that healing, after years of trying to reach him, finally redirected to someone else, someone who had surrendered their identity completely to Christ. A woman named Michelle praying for her adult son to return to faith. 3 years of tearful prayers, of fasting, of intercession, and the breakthrough was there, already released, her son's heart already being prepared. But the barrier was her living room, a shrine to her son's childhood, every surface covered with photos of him, his artwork from elementary school framed on the walls, his sports trophies displayed like religious relics. She had made her son into an idol, made motherhood into her entire identity, and she was holding on to him so tightly, even in her prayers, that she was actually blocking God's work in his life. The breakthrough required her to release him, to trust God with him completely, but she couldn't do it because her entire sense of worth was wrapped up in being his mother. A couple named Robert and Linda praying for restoration in their marriage, 2 years of counseling, of prayer, of trying to reconnect, and the breakthrough was there, the healing was released, but it couldn't penetrate the barrier. The barrier was their house itself, a showplace, a magazine-worthy display of interior design that had cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars and countless hours of stress. They couldn't have people over because someone might spill something. They couldn't relax because something might get out of place. They couldn't be vulnerable with each other because they were too exhausted from maintaining the image. Their house had become their idol, and it was literally destroying their marriage while they prayed for God to fix their marriage. Stop, I said, tears streaming down my face. Please stop, I can't. You can't? Jesus said, and his voice was sharp now, cutting. You can't watch anymore? These are my children, Jonathan. I watch this every single day, every single hour. I watch them pray for blessings I've already sent. I watch them beg for breakthrough that's already been released. I watch them weep and fast and plead while the answer sits just beyond a barrier they built with their own hands and refused to tear down. The platform beneath my feet shook, not from the waterfall, but from something else. Thunder rumbled in the distance, though there were no clouds. The stars seemed to pulse with light. Do you know what the worst part is? He asked, his voice breaking. They think I'm withholding from them. They think I'm testing them by making them wait. They think I'm teaching them patience or character or perseverance. And all the while I'm screaming. If a God could scream, the blessing is right there. Just let go of the idol. Just remove the barrier. But they can't hear me because the voice of their idol is louder. He walked to the edge of the overlook, and I followed on shaking legs. The pool below was full of blessings now, glowing like stars, each one with a name attached. Thousands of them, tens of thousands, all waiting, all blocked. This is just one night, Jesus said quietly. This is just the people in one city, in one moment. Multiply this across the world, across every moment of every day, and you begin to understand the scope of what I'm dealing with. An entire generation of believers who have been taught that grace means I don't care what they love, that freedom means they can hold on to anything, that my blessings are unconditional even when their hearts are divided. But grace is unconditional, I said weakly. Salvation is unconditional. Yes, he said, turning to face me. Salvation is unconditional. My love is unconditional. But my blessings require open hands. They require undivided hearts. They require people who love me more than they love anything else, not because I'm petty or demanding, but because that's how blessings work. You cannot receive what I want to give you if your hands are full of other things. You cannot be filled with my spirit if you're already full of the world. He gestured back toward the barriers, and I could see them more clearly now. Each one was woven not just from objects, but from emotions: fear, pride, nostalgia, insecurity, comparison, status-seeking, comfort-craving. The objects were just the physical manifestation of heart issues. A woman holds on to her deceased mother's jewelry not because the jewelry itself is the problem, but because she's made it into a connection to her mother that rivals her connection to me, Jesus explained. A man holds on to his collection of vintage cars not because cars are evil, but because they represent success and status, and he's made those things into his identity instead of making me his identity. A couple holds on to their perfectly decorated home not because beauty is wrong, but because they've made their image into their God, and they worship at the altar of what people think of them. The sky was beginning to lighten again, that same deep blue that preceded dawn, but this time there were clouds rolling in from the east, dark and heavy with rain. There's a storm coming, Jesus said, and I didn't know if he meant the weather or something else. Tomorrow night, I'm going to show you what happens when people refuse to remove their barriers. I'm going to show you the judgment that comes not from me, but from their own choices. Not because I'm punishing them, but because they're punishing themselves. I don't want to see that, I said honestly. I know, he said, and the tenderness was back in his voice. But you need to, because some of the people watching this right now are standing at a crossroads. They can remove their barriers and receive everything I have for them, or they can defend their idols and lose everything, and they need to understand what's at stake. He began to fade again, becoming mist, becoming light, but before he disappeared completely, he spoke one more time. Tell them about your own barrier, Jonathan. Tell them what I showed you in your own home. Tell them you're not exempt. Tell them you're not above this. Tell them the truth. And then he was gone, and I was alone as the first drops of rain began to fall. I need to be honest with you, vulnerable, because he's right. I'm not exempt from this. Yesterday, after the first encounter, I went home and I prayed that dangerous prayer. Show me what I've made into an idol. And he did, immediately. My career, my role in the chosen, the recognition, the platform, the sense of purpose and significance that comes from being known for portraying Jesus. I've made it into my identity. I've made it into my security. And he showed me that there's a blessing he's been trying to give me, a deeper intimacy with him, a new direction in ministry, but I can't receive it because I'm holding on to this role so tightly that I can't imagine life without it. I'm 51 years old, I'm single, I don't have children, and somewhere along the way, I made my career into my family. I made my work into my worth, and it's blocking something beautiful that God wants to give me. I don't know what removing that barrier looks like yet. Maybe it means walking away from the show. Maybe it just means changing my heart toward it. But I know the barrier is there, and I know I have to deal with it. So I'm not preaching at you from some place of superiority. I'm in the trenches with you. I'm wrestling with my own idols. I'm feeling the same resistance, the same fear, the same, but God, not this that you're feeling right now. But here's what I know. The blessings are real, the waterfall is real, and the barriers are real, and we have a choice to make. I need you to do something before tomorrow night. I need you to go back through your home, but this time, I want you to pay attention to your emotional response to things. When you look at an object and feel anxiety about getting rid of it, that's a red flag. When you look at something and immediately start justifying why you need to keep it, that's a red flag. When you look at something and feel your identity or security or worth tied to it, that's a red flag. Write down what you find. Comment below with just one word, the category of your barrier. Is it achievement, status, past, image of security, identity? Just one word, because naming it is the first step to removing it. And come back tomorrow night, because what he's going to show me on the third night is going to change everything. It's going to make this all make sense. But I'm warning you, it's not going to be comfortable. The rain is falling harder now, the waterfall is still flowing, the blessings are still waiting, but the barriers must come down, and time is running out. It was February 18th, 2026, at 4:44 a.m., when I woke not to a dream, but to a sound. The sound of weeping so profound, so utterly broken, that I thought someone was in my room. I sat up in the darkness, my heart pounding, and realized the weeping was coming from inside my own chest. Not my weeping, his. I could feel his grief like it was my own, like our hearts had somehow merged in the night, and the weight of it was crushing. I've never experienced anything like it in my 51 years. It was the grief of a father watching his children destroy themselves, the grief of a bridegroom watching his bride give herself to other lovers, the grief of a creator watching his creation choose death over life. I didn't drive to the waterfall this time. I ran. I left my phone, my wallet, my flashlight. I ran out of my house in the clothes I'd slept in and drove those mountain roads faster than I should have, and when I reached the trailhead, I ran the entire 15 minutes through the rainforest in complete darkness, stumbling over roots, branches whipping my face, not caring because the grief was so heavy I thought I would die if I didn't reach him. The storm that had been threatening the night before had arrived. Rain fell in sheets, warm and heavy, soaking through my clothes in seconds. Lightning flashed in the distance, illuminating the canopy in brief, stark moments of clarity. Thunder rolled through the mountains like the voice of God himself, and the waterfall was raging, swollen from the rain, crashing into the pool below with such violence that I could feel it in my bones from 100 yards away. When I reached the overlook, I collapsed against the railing, gasping for breath, rain streaming down my face, and I shouted into the storm, I'm here, please, I can't carry this grief anymore." Lightning struck somewhere close, close enough that the thunder was instantaneous, close enough that I smelled ozone and burning wood. And in the flash of light, I saw him. He was standing in the center of the platform, rain falling through him and around him simultaneously. And his face, oh God, his face. I've portrayed grief in my work. I've studied it, practiced it, tried to capture it on camera, but I've never seen anything like what was on his face in that moment. It was the grief of Gethsemane, the grief of the cross, the grief of every unanswered prayer, every blocked blessing, every divided heart across all of human history, concentrated into a single expression. They're choosing their idols, he said, and his voice was barely a whisper, but I heard it clearly over the storm. After everything I've shown you, after everything you've shared, they're choosing their idols. No, I said, shaking my head. Some of them are responding. Some of them are. Some, he interrupted. Some, but most are defending. Most are justifying. Most are explaining why their situation is different, why their objects aren't really idols, why grace means they don't have to change anything. He gestured toward the waterfall, and the perspective shifted again. But this time, instead of seeing the blessings trying to break through, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The barriers were growing, thickening, solidifying. Every time they defend their idol, the barrier gets stronger, Jesus said. Every time they justify their divided heart, the wall gets higher. Every time they choose comfort over obedience, security over trust, image over authenticity, the blessing gets further away. I watched in horror as specific barriers grew before my eyes. Sarah, the woman with the room full of possessions, I saw her reading the first message, feeling convicted, starting to go through her things. But then the fear came. What if I need this? What if I regret giving this away? What if this is just manipulation, just someone trying to make me feel guilty? And with each fearful thought, each defensive justification, the barrier thickened. The $47,000 blessing that had been so close, that had been pushing against the barrier, suddenly retreated. Not because God withdrew it, but because the barrier became impenetrable. Where did it go? I asked desperately. It's still there, Jesus said. Still waiting. But now it will take something more dramatic to break through. Now she'll have to face a crisis that forces her to let go. Now the easy path is closed, and only the hard path remains. He showed me David, the man with chronic pain and the home gym full of equipment representing his past identity. I watched him read the message, feel the conviction, actually walk into his garage and put his hand on one of the machines. But then the voice came, not audible but clear. This is who you are. This is what made you valuable. If you let this go, you're admitting you're not that person anymore. You're admitting you're weak. You're admitting you failed. And he pulled his hand back. He walked away, and the barrier thickened. The healing that had been so close, that had been pressing against the wall, suddenly retreated. He'll get his healing, Jesus said quietly, but not the way it could have been. Now it will come through surgery, through months of painful recovery, through a process that will force him to face his identity issues the hard way. The easy path was to simply let go. The hard path is to be broken down until there's nothing left to hold on to. Vision after vision, he showed me, each one more devastating than the last. Michelle, the mother who had made her son into an idol, reading the message and feeling angry instead of convicted. How dare someone tell me I love my son too much? How dare someone suggest my prayers aren't working because of something I'm doing wrong? And with each defensive thought, the barrier thickened. The breakthrough for her son that had been so close suddenly retreated, and I saw the timeline extend, not 3 more months, but 3 more years of waiting, because she chose to defend her idol instead of surrendering it. Robert and Linda, the couple with the showplace home, reading the message together and laughing it off. This doesn't apply to us. We're not materialistic. We just appreciate beauty. There's nothing wrong with having nice things. And the barrier thickened. The marriage restoration that had been pressing against the wall suddenly retreated, and I saw their future. Separation, divorce, years of regret, all because they chose their image over their intimacy. Stop, I screamed. Please, stop showing me this. But he didn't stop. The visions kept coming, faster now, overlapping, hundreds of them, thousands of them. People all over the world reading the message or hearing about it, feeling the conviction of the Holy Spirit, standing at the crossroads between surrender and choosing defense, choosing their idols, choosing their comfort, choosing their security. And with each choice, barriers thickened, blessings retreated, and the easy paths closed. This is judgment, Jesus said, and his voice was hollow, empty. Not the judgment of my wrath, but the judgment of their own choices. I'm not withholding from them. They're withholding from themselves. I'm not blocking the blessings. They're blocking the blessings. And the tragedy, the absolute tragedy, is that they think they're defending their freedom when they're actually choosing their prison. Lightning struck again, closer this time, and in the flash I saw the pool below the waterfall. It was overflowing with blessings now, so many that they were spilling over the edges, being washed away downstream, lost forever because the people they were meant for had made their barriers impenetrable. Those blessings don't come back, Jesus said, following my gaze. Once the season passes, once the opportunity closes, they're gone. I'll send other blessings. Yes, I never stop loving my children. But these specific blessings, these specific breakthroughs, these specific miracles, they were for this moment. And when this moment passes, they pass with it. He turned to face me fully, and I saw that he wasn't just weeping anymore. He was shaking with the force of his grief, his whole body trembling like the platform beneath our feet. Do you understand what I'm showing you? He asked. Do you understand the stakes? I think so, I whispered. No, he said sharply. You don't. Let me show you the end of this path. Let me show you what happens when my people choose their idols over me. The scene shifted, and suddenly we were no longer at the waterfall. We were standing in a church, a large, modern church full of people. Worship music played, lights flashed. People raised their hands, sang loudly, appeared to be fully engaged in worship. But Jesus gestured, and I could see what he saw. Every person in that room had a barrier around them, thick and impenetrable, and inside each barrier they were alone. Completely, utterly alone. They were singing to God, but their hearts were singing to their idols. They were raising their hands to heaven, but their hands were full of the things they loved more than Him. They were crying out for breakthrough, but their cries couldn't penetrate the walls they'd built. This is the church in America, Jesus said, and His voice was filled with such sorrow that I felt my knees buckle. This is the church in the Western world, a people who know all the right words, who perform all the right actions, who maintain all the right appearances, but whose hearts are divided. A people who want my blessings but won't surrender their idols. A people who cry out for revival but won't remove the barriers that prevent revival from coming. He walked through the crowd, and I followed. He stopped in front of a woman who was weeping as she sang, her hands raised high, her face tilted toward heaven. She's praying for her daughter's healing, Jesus said. Stage 4 cancer, 6 months to live according to the doctors, and the healing is already released, it's already been sent, but look. He gestured, and I could see into her home, a prayer room, beautifully decorated, full of Christian books and worship music and all the trappings of deep faith. But in the center of the room was an altar, not a physical altar, but a spiritual one, and on that altar was her reputation, her image as a woman of great faith, her identity as someone who hears from God, who has powerful prayers, who is known in her church as a prayer warrior. She's more afraid of losing her reputation than losing her daughter, Jesus said quietly. If the healing doesn't come, people will question her faith. They'll wonder if she really hears from God. They'll stop asking her to pray for them. And she's built her entire identity on being the woman with powerful prayers. So she can't surrender. She can't say, "Not my will, but yours." She can't release her daughter into my hands because doing so would mean releasing her identity. And so the healing can't come, not because I'm withholding it, but because she's blocking it with her need to be seen as faithful. I felt sick, physically sick. He moved to a man, mid-50s, hands in his pockets, singing half-heartedly. He's praying for his business to survive, Jesus said. He's 3 months from bankruptcy, and the provision is already released. A contract, a client, a breakthrough that would save everything. But look, I saw into his office, walls covered with awards, photos with celebrities and politicians, evidence of past success, and in the center of it all, an altar to his own competence, his identity as a successful businessman, his need to be seen as someone who has it all together. The provision requires him to ask for help, Jesus explained. It requires him to humble himself, to admit he's struggling, to be vulnerable with his church community. But he can't do it because his identity is wrapped up in being the successful one, the one who has it all figured out, the one who gives advice rather than receiving it. And so the provision can't come. The contract will go to someone else. The business will fail. Not because I didn't answer his prayer, but because his pride, his idol of self-sufficiency, blocked the answer. Person after person he showed me, each one praying desperately for breakthrough, each one with the breakthrough already released, already sent, already pressing against their barrier, and each one choosing their idol over their breakthrough without even realizing they were making a choice. This is why revival tarries, Jesus said, and we were suddenly back at the waterfall, the storm still raging around us. This is why my church is weak. This is why the world looks at my people and sees no difference between believers and unbelievers. Because my people have learned to worship me with their lips while their hearts worship their idols. They've learned to perform Christianity while living for themselves. They've learned to pray for my blessings while refusing to surrender the things that block those blessings. The sky was beginning to lighten, but the storm showed no signs of stopping. If anything, it was intensifying. The wind howled through the canopy. The rain fell in torrents. The waterfall raged with such violence that spray reached all the way to the platform, mixing with the rain until I couldn't tell which was which. "What do you want me to tell them?" I shouted over the storm. "What do you want them to do?" "Tell them the truth," he said. And suddenly he was right in front of me, so close I could see every detail of his face despite the darkness and rain. "Tell them that I love them too much to let them stay comfortable in their idolatry. Tell them that the blessings they're praying for are already released, but they must remove the barriers. Tell them that time is running out. Time is running out, I repeated. What does that mean? There's a window, he said. A season of grace where the blessings wait, where the easy path remains open, where simple obedience is all that's required. But that window doesn't stay open forever. Eventually the season passes, the opportunity closes, and what could have been received through simple surrender must then be received through painful breaking. What could have been easy becomes hard. What could have been joyful becomes sorrowful. He placed his hand on my chest, right over my heart, and I felt a jolt of something, electricity, fire, I don't know, shoot through my entire body. 30 days, he said. Tell them they have 30 days from the moment they hear this message. 30 days to identify their idols and remove them. 30 days to tear down their barriers. 30 days to choose me over everything else. After 30 days, the easy path closes. The blessings will still come eventually, but not the way they could have, not in the timing they could have, not with the joy they could have. Why 30 days? I asked. Because that's how long it takes to break a habit, he said. That's how long it takes to establish a new pattern. That's how long it takes to prove that the surrender is real and not just emotional manipulation. 30 days of choosing me over the idol. 30 days of trusting me more than their security. 30 days of loving me more than their comfort. And at the end of 30 days, the barrier will be gone and the blessing will flow. He removed his hand from my chest, and I gasped, suddenly able to breathe fully again. But what about grace? I asked desperately. What about the fact that your mercies are new every morning? What about the fact that you're patient and long-suffering? My grace is infinite, he said gently. My mercy is endless. My love never fails. But my blessings require cooperation. They require open hands and undivided hearts. They require people who love me more than they love anything else. Not because I'm insecure or demanding, but because that's how the kingdom works. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot worship two gods. You cannot receive what I want to give you if your hands are full of other things. Lightning struck again, and in the flash, I saw something that made me fall to my knees. The barriers around the world, around every believer who had chosen their idols over surrender, were beginning to solidify, to become permanent. Not because God was making them permanent, but because the people themselves were cementing them in place with every defensive thought, every justification, every yes, but... No, I sobbed. Please, no. It doesn't have to be this way, Jesus said, kneeling beside me in the rain. That's why I'm showing you this. That's why I'm sending this message. Because there's still time. The window is still open. The easy path is still available. But they must choose. They must act. They must surrender. He helped me to my feet, and I stood there shaking, soaked to the bone, watching the waterfall rage in the growing dawn light. Tomorrow night, he said, I'm going to show you the practical steps. I'm going to show you exactly what they need to do. But tonight I need you to deliver the warning. I need you to tell them what's at stake. I need you to tell them that their comfort is costing them their destiny, that their security is costing them their breakthrough, that their idols are costing them everything I died to give them. He began to fade, but his voice remained, echoing in the storm. 30 days. Tell them 30 days. Starting from the moment they hear this message. 30 days to choose. 30 days to surrender. 30 days to remove the barriers. After that, the easy path closes, and only the hard path remains. And then he was gone, and I was alone in the storm, weeping, shaking, knowing that what I had to share would make people angry, would make people defensive, would make people accuse me of manipulation and fear-mongering. But I also knew it was true. I knew it in my bones, in my spirit, in the very core of my being. I have to tell you something, and I need you to hear me clearly. I don't want to deliver this message. I don't want to be the person who puts a deadline on God's grace. I don't want to be accused of manipulation or of creating false urgency. But I can't not tell you what I saw. I can't not deliver the warning I was given. You have 30 days from the moment you're reading this. 30 days to identify the idols in your home and remove them. 30 days to tear down the barriers that are blocking your blessings. 30 days to prove that you love God more than you love your comfort, your security, your image, your past, your achievements, your possessions. That means if you're reading this on the day it's posted, your deadline is March 18th, 2026. Write that date down, put it in your phone, mark it on your calendar. And understand this, I'm not saying God will stop loving you after 30 days. I'm not saying you'll lose your salvation. I'm not saying he'll give up on you. I'm saying the easy path will close. The blessing that could have come through simple obedience will now require painful breaking. The breakthrough that could have come through willing surrender will now require unwilling crisis. The miracle that could have been joyful will now be sorrowful. God will still bring you to the place he wants you to be, but the journey will be harder than it needed to be. Comment below if you understand the warning. Comment, I choose you, if you're committing to the 30 days. Comment your deadline date so you're accountable. And come back tomorrow night for the final message, because I'm going to give you the practical steps. I'm going to show you exactly what to do. I'm going to walk you through the process of identifying your idols and removing your barriers. The storm is still raging, the waterfall is still flowing, the blessings are still waiting, but the window is closing, and you must choose. I'm writing this on February 19th, 2026 at 2 p.m., sitting on that same overlook platform in broad daylight, and the contrast between what this place looks like now and what I experienced over the last 3 nights is almost unbearable. The storm has passed. The sun is shining through breaks in the canopy, creating shafts of golden light that illuminate the mist rising from the waterfall. Birds are calling. The air smells clean, washed, new. Tourists are hiking the trail behind me, laughing, taking photos, completely unaware that this spot has been a meeting place between heaven and earth for the past 72 hours. I didn't come here because he called me. I came because I needed to see it in the daylight. I needed to process what happened. I needed to understand how to translate supernatural encounter into practical application, because that's what you need now. You don't need another vision. You don't need another warning. You need to know exactly what to do. But before I give you the practical steps, I need to tell you what happened after I left here last night. I drove home in the storm, still shaking, still weeping, and I walked into my house with new eyes. Every room looked different. Every object seemed to glow with either light or shadow, light if it was just a thing, shadow if it had become an idol. And I'm telling you, I was shocked by how much shadow there was. My living room wall, covered with posters and photos from The Chosen, every premiere, every significant moment, every award, every recognition. I'd told myself it was just documentation, just gratitude for the opportunity. But as I stood there at 6 a.m., soaking wet, looking at that wall, I heard his voice clearly. This is your altar. This is where you worship your identity as the man who plays me instead of the man who follows me. I spent the next 4 hours taking it all down. Every poster, every photo, every piece of evidence that I'd made my career into my God. And with each item I removed, I felt something break inside me, not in a bad way, but like chains snapping, like prison doors opening, like barriers crumbling. I'm not saying I'm quitting The Chosen. I'm not saying God is calling me away from that work. I'm saying I had to break the worship. I had to remove the altar. I had to prove, to myself, to God, to the enemy, that my identity is in Christ alone, not in my role, not in my recognition, not in my platform. And here's what happened. Within 2 hours of finishing, I got a phone call, an opportunity I'd been praying about for 3 years, an opportunity that would have seemed impossible yesterday, an opportunity that opens doors I didn't even know existed. The blessing that had been blocked by my barrier suddenly broke through the moment the barrier came down. I'm not promising that will happen for everyone in 2 hours, but I am telling you it will happen. The blessings are real, they're waiting, and they will flow the moment the barriers come down. So let me give you the practical steps. This is the 30-day challenge that Jesus gave me to give to you. This is how you identify your idols and remove your barriers. Week 1, Identification, days 1 to 7. For the first 7 days, you're going to walk through your home with a specific prayer. Jesus, show me what I've made into an idol. Show me what I'm trusting more than you. Show me what I'm loving more than you. You're going to go room by room slowly, and you're going to pay attention to 3 things. First, emotional attachment. When you look at an object and feel anxiety about losing it, that's a red flag. When you look at something and immediately start justifying why you need it, that's a red flag. When you look at something and feel your identity or security or worth connected to it, that's a red flag. Second, time and attention. What do you spend time maintaining? What do you think about? What do you check on? Dust, organize, photograph, show off? Where does your mental energy go? Because whatever consumes your time and attention is what you're worshiping. Third, fear and resistance. As you walk through your home praying this prayer, you're going to feel resistance. You're going to feel the enemy whispering, not that, anything but that. That's not really an idol. That's just important to you. Pay attention to that resistance. It's showing you exactly where your idols are. Get a notebook. Write down everything that triggers these 3 responses. Don't edit yourself. Don't justify. Just write it down. By the end of week 1, you should have a list of potential idols. Week 2, examination, days 8 to 14. Now you're going to take that list and examine each item more deeply. For each potential idol, ask yourself these questions. What does this object represent to me? Not what it is, but what it means. That diploma isn't just paper, it represents your intelligence, your achievement, your worth. That photo isn't just an image, it represents your identity as a parent, your purpose, your significance. Get to the root. What am I afraid will happen if I lose this? This question reveals what you're really trusting in. If you're afraid you'll lose your identity, the object has become your identity. If you're afraid you'll lose your security, the object has become your security. If you're afraid you'll lose your worth, the object has become your worth. Is this object blocking a blessing I've been praying for? Ask God directly. Is my attachment to this thing blocking the financial breakthrough I've been praying for? Is it blocking the healing? Is it blocking the relationship restoration? Is it blocking the purpose and calling? And then listen. He will answer, what would it cost me to surrender this? Be honest. What would it actually cost, emotionally, financially, socially, to let this go? Because you need to count the cost before you make the decision. What might it cost me not to surrender this? This is the crucial question. What blessing am I forfeiting by holding on to this idol? What breakthrough am I blocking? What destiny am I delaying? By the end of week 2, you should have clarity on which items are actually idols and which are just things. You should know what needs to go. Week 3, action, days 15 to 21. This is the hardest week. This is where you actually remove the idols. And I need to be very clear about something. Removing the idol doesn't always mean getting rid of the physical object. Sometimes it does. Sometimes you need to literally sell it, give it away, throw it away, destroy it. But sometimes removing the idol means changing your heart toward the object. Let me give you examples. Sarah with the room full of possessions. She needs to physically clear out that room. Not because the objects themselves are evil, but because her attachment to them is blocking her blessing. She needs to give away or sell at least 75% of what's in there, and as she does it, she needs to pray over each item. Jesus, I'm releasing my security in this thing and placing my security in you alone. David with the home gym. He needs to get rid of the equipment, all of it. Not because exercise is bad, but because those specific items represent an identity he's worshiping. He can join a gym later if he wants. He can buy new equipment later if God leads, but right now he needs to remove the altar to his past self. Michelle with the shrine to her son, she doesn't necessarily need to throw away every photo, but she needs to take down the displays, she needs to pack away the trophies. She needs to create space in her home and her heart that isn't dominated by her identity as his mother. She needs to physically demonstrate that her son is not her God. Robert and Linda with the showplace home. They need to invite people over. Messy people. People with kids who might spill things, people who might not appreciate the decor. They need to use their home as a tool for ministry instead of a shrine to their image. They need to break the worship of appearance. Here's the key. The action needs to be significant enough that it costs you something. It needs to be uncomfortable. It needs to require faith, because that's what breaks the power of the idol. Not just acknowledging it exists, but actually surrendering it. Some of you are going to need to sell the car that represents your status, give away the clothes that represent your image, delete the social media accounts that represent your need for validation, clear out the storage unit that represents your security, take down the awards that represent your identity, donate the books that represent your intellectual pride, simplify the home that represents your need for control, and some of you are going to need to do something even harder. Quit the job that's become your God, and the relationship that's become your idol. Leave the church where you're worshipped instead of being discipled. Step down from the ministry position that's become your identity. Move from the city where your reputation has become your prison. I can't tell you specifically what you need to do, but the Holy Spirit will. Ask Him, He'll show you, and then you need to obey, even when it's terrifying. Week 4, establishment, days 22 to 30. The final week is about establishing new patterns, because if you just remove the idol without replacing it with worship of Jesus, you'll fill the space with a different idol. Every day for the final 9 days, you're going to do 3 things. First, you're going to spend 30 minutes in the space where the idol used to be. If you cleared out a room, sit in that room. If you took down a wall of achievements, stand in front of that empty wall. If you got rid of equipment or collections or displays, stand in the empty space. And you're going to worship Jesus there. You're going to pray there. You're going to read scripture there. You're going to establish that space as a place of encounter with Him instead of a place of worship of the idol. Second, You're going to declare your new identity out loud. Not just think it, not just believe it, speak it. I am not defined by my career. I am defined by Christ. I am not secured by my possessions. I am secured by Christ. I am not valued by my achievements. I am valued by Christ. Whatever your idol was, you're going to verbally declare the truth that replaces it. Third, you're going to give testimony. You're going to tell someone what you did and why you did it, not to brag, not to perform, but to cement the decision. Because when you give testimony, you're making a public declaration that you can't easily take back. You're creating accountability. You're inviting others into your process. By day 30, the barrier should be gone, the blessing should be flowing, and you should have established new patterns of worship that prevent the idol from returning. Now, I need to address something that I know many of you are thinking. This sounds like works. This sounds like I'm earning God's blessing through my actions. What about grace? Listen to me carefully. You cannot earn God's love. You cannot earn your salvation. You cannot earn His favor. Those things are already yours through Christ. They're gifts, freely given, that you receive by faith alone. But blessings, specific tangible blessings in response to specific prayers, those require cooperation. They require obedience. They require undivided hearts. Think of it this way. If I wanted to give you a gift, but your hands were full of other things, I couldn't give it to you until you put down what you were holding. That doesn't mean you're earning the gift. It means you're making space to receive it. That's what this is. You're not earning God's blessing. You're removing the barriers that prevent you from receiving the blessing He's already sent. The sun is starting to move lower in the sky now. I've been sitting here for hours writing this, praying over every word, asking God to give me clarity and wisdom to communicate this in a way that helps rather than harms. And I keep coming back to the waterfall. In the daylight, it's beautiful, powerful but not frightening, majestic but not overwhelming. The water falls in a constant, steady flow, and the mist rises like incense, and the pool below is clear and inviting. This is what God's blessings look like when there are no barriers: constant, abundant, life-giving, accessible. But I remember what it looked like in the storm, in the darkness, when the barriers were visible and the blessings were blocked and the grief of heaven was palpable. And I know that for many of you, that's where you are right now, in the storm, in the darkness, praying for breakthrough that seems to never come, begging for blessings that seem to be withheld, wondering if God even hears you. He hears you. The blessings are released. The breakthrough is sent, but the barriers must come down. I want to give you some specific testimonies from people who have already started this process. I've received hundreds of messages in the last 3 days, and I want to share just a few. From Jennifer: I cleared out my garage like you said, gave away over $10,000 worth of stuff that I was holding on to, just in case. 2 days later, I got a call about a job I'd applied for 6 months ago and never heard back about. They want me to start next week at a salary $15,000 higher than what I'm making now. The blessing was waiting. From Marcus: I took down my trophy wall, every award from high school and college, every recognition from my career. It was my identity. I was terrified to let it go. But the day after I did it, my wife, who I've been separated from for 8 months, called and said she wants to try again. We're in counseling now. The barrier is down, and the healing is flowing. From Patricia: I sold my mother's jewelry, all of it. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I realized I was holding on to her through those objects instead of trusting God with my grief. Within a week, the depression that I've battled for 3 years lifted. Just lifted. Like a weight I didn't even know I was carrying was suddenly gone. From Thomas: I deleted my social media accounts, all of them. I didn't realize how much of my identity was wrapped up in my online image until it was gone. And the very next day, I had the clearest sense of God's calling on my life that I've had in a decade. The noise was blocking His voice. These are real people, real testimonies, real breakthroughs that came when real barriers came down. And here's what I want you to understand. Your testimony is waiting to be written. Your breakthrough is waiting to happen. Your blessing is waiting to flow. But you have to choose. You have to act. You have to surrender. Your 30-day deadline starts the moment you finish reading this. For most of you, that means your deadline is March 21st, 2026. Write it down. Right now. Put it in your phone. Set a reminder. Make it real. And then start. Today. Don't wait until tomorrow. Don't wait until you feel ready. Don't wait until it's convenient. Start today. Walk through your home today and begin the identification process. Ask Jesus to show you what you've made into an idol. And when He shows you, and He will show you, don't defend it. Don't justify it. Don't explain it away. Just acknowledge it and commit to dealing with it. I'm going to be checking the comments every day for the next 30 days. I want to hear your testimonies. I want to know what God is showing you. I want to celebrate your breakthroughs with you. Comment below with your deadline date, 30 days from today. One idol God has already shown you, your commitment. I choose you, Jesus, over everything else. And then do the work. Do the hard, uncomfortable, faith-requiring work of tearing down your barriers. Because here's what I know with absolute certainty after these 3 nights of encounter. God is not withholding from you. He's not testing you by making you wait. He's not teaching you patience by delaying your breakthrough. He's already sent the blessing. He's already released the breakthrough. He's already answered your prayer. The waterfall is flowing. It's been flowing all along, constant, abundant, powerful, life-giving, but the barriers must come down. I'm sitting here looking at this waterfall in the afternoon sun, and I'm thinking about all of you, thousands of you, all over the world reading this message right now, and I'm praying for you. I'm praying that you'll have the courage to identify your idols. I'm praying that you'll have the faith to remove your barriers. I'm praying that you'll have the perseverance to complete the 30 days. Because on day 31, everything changes. On day 31, you're going to look back and realize that the thing you were so afraid to surrender was actually the thing that was keeping you from everything you really wanted. On day 31, you're going to wonder why you held onto your idol for so long when the blessing was so much better. But you have to get to day 31. You have to start. You have to choose. The easy path is still open. The window is still available. The blessings are still waiting. But time is running out. Not because God is impatient, not because he's giving up on you, but because there are seasons and times and moments when heaven is particularly close, when breakthrough is particularly accessible, when the barriers are particularly easy to remove. This is one of those moments. You've been marked for this message. You didn't stumble onto this video by accident. You weren't randomly scrolling when this appeared in your feed. You were led here, chosen for this moment, selected to receive this revelation, and now you have a choice to make. Will you defend your idols or will you surrender them? Will you justify your barriers or will you remove them? Will you choose comfort or will you choose breakthrough? Will you choose your security or will you choose his blessing? Will you choose the idol or will you choose Jesus? I'm 51 years old. I'm single. I don't have children. I don't have a family to fall back on or a spouse to support me or kids to give me purpose. For years, I made my career into all of those things. I made my role in the chosen into my identity, my security, my worth, my purpose, and God loved me too much to let me stay there. He brought me to this waterfall 3 nights in a row and showed me the truth, that I was blocking my own blessings, that the very thing I thought was my greatest asset was actually my greatest barrier, that I had to choose between the role and the relationship, between the platform and the presence, between being known for playing Jesus and actually knowing Jesus. I chose him. I tore down my altar. I removed my barrier. And the blessing that broke through was better than anything I was holding on to. Yours will be too. The waterfall is still flowing. The sun is setting now, painting the mist with gold and orange and pink. The tourists have gone home. I'm alone here again, but it's a different kind of alone than it was in the darkness. This is peaceful, restful, full of hope. This is what's waiting for you on the other side of surrender, not emptiness, not loss, not regret, but fullness, abundance, joy, breakthrough, blessing. The waterfall that's been trying to reach you for years, finally flowing freely into your life. All you have to do is remove the barrier. 30 days, starting now. Choose Jesus. Choose breakthrough. Choose life. The blessings are waiting. And so am I. I'll see you in the comments. I'll see you in your testimonies. I'll see you on the other side of surrender. May God give you courage for the journey. Hidden in your home.